No problem.
Well, if you look at the Chairman, do thing. Stop at Kubona song, stop at
the people. Now, I think we should really start.
That's the situation. I linear vote. This is something. Another month now. So what is it?
I want to welcome everyone and ask that we start with the word of prayer. It is not here that we pray before we start any business. We ask who is I think already I have apologized in front of us with Mr. Wood, and he's going to give us more about himself before he addresses our issues, and I'm sure you'll be happy to know that there is Jabolo Mahoza from Buta, he's a member of the committee, Deon also a member of the committee. These are former ministers, you know, he was once minister and he's been a minister quite recently. So I have a very powerful team, an independent team that is going to be dealing with this critical issue. Can I please, I'm sure you have had access to our terms of reference.
Sorry?
I'm sure you have seen our terms of reference.
No, I haven't.
Well, I think that is the starting point. I'm sure we'll try to assist to get us some coffees. Now here comes another member.
Oh, good day.
Oh, second again. Sure. Absolutely. Thank you.
This is Skumbuzo Dlamini, MP from Ngwenya. So you see Ngwenya is down south. So if you can see our members come from very far. This is why sometimes I can already have apologized.
No problem, really.
So I think the starting point would be for you, Mr. Wood, to introduce yourself briefly, your background, and what you are doing in the community.
Okay, I am Deon Wood. I'm from South Africa. I was born in Johannesburg. I've mostly lived in Cape Town, and I've traveled extensively around the world and around Africa. I am a
Yes, Kumabaga.
That's that you can wait. Oh. So.
Thank you very much.
I'm going to get your email address too.
Sorry?
I need to get this.
Yeah, you can take one of your copies. I'll give it to you.
Yes, can you please continue?
Okay, I have a basic diploma in education in teaching. I'm also a physical education, and I have for the last 20 years been self-educating in all aspects of personal development and social development. I've always taken a non-official position in everything that I've done. My primary focus is social development for Africa, and I work independently, and I focus primarily on critical areas for social development in countries. I try to sidestep bureaucratic systems in order to cut through red tape, in order to deliver the education and the tools to the people who need them, and I try to overcome the challenges of institutions in order to deliver that successfully. So what I normally do in Africa is that I take a very unofficial position in where I can educate and influence individuals or organizations at their request to gain new perspectives and directions in order to facilitate and serve African social development. Everything that I do is primarily focused on economic empowerment, and the elimination of poverty in Africa. Now, what my primary focus in Swaziland is that I am developing a project, a social development project for Swaziland, which I call Integrity. It's contemporary education and development projects. And what I did is I traveled around the country extensively for about the last 12 months, and to meet with people, to integrate myself into Swaziland social circles on all levels, and for me to identify critical needs for social development. And I identified several, but what came up as the critical number one was cannabis awareness and law reform. So I immediately began to do some research externally and internally in what is happening in cannabis in the world, and what is Swaziland's current position on cannabis legalization, and I was shocked on both counts. I was totally unaware, even though I am basically educated in all the aspects of cannabis and the benefits, I was shocked to find that in the world right now, there is a global economical revolution going on with regards to cannabis. It is sweeping, it is permeating the world, and we are hoping that Africa is going to get onto the train, and Africa can play a huge role in which economists have now determined that Africa will be the growing fields of the world. Cannabis, I saw very clearly, very quickly, that cannabis, the potential of cannabis industry development in Africa is the answer to almost every critical problem that we have in Africa. It is the miracle that we've been praying for. It presents the opportunities in terms of social development, industrial development, agricultural development, medical development, and of course, as we're saying, economical development that is unprecedented. It's untouched by any opportunity we've ever had before. So I dived into it, and I continued to meet people around Swaziland to understand very clearly the current perspectives on cannabis in Swaziland, the perspectives right now that are changing in the world outside. I've examined America's system, Canadian system, basic of Israel's system, and Uruguay's system, in what approach they took, what challenges they came across, what obstacles, and how they've dealt with each obstacle. And I've lightly brushed on each one of their modules, their regulatory modules that they now set forth, which is going to be a progressive development. They're laying a foundation, but everybody's flexible right now. There's new evidence, there's new scientific reports, there's new information coming up all the time. There's new obstacles to be faced, so it's a very flexible system, but they're setting the basic foundation. Just going back to me personally again, is that I would even suggest that I'm taking a very unofficial position here, and that the information that I can give you is primarily to help you, to assist your research process that you've been given the responsibility of now, to shape it in terms of that I can give you an overall perspective of what you're actually looking at right now. What are you investigating? What are the things that you need to tackle? What do you need to be aware of? Because I know, even 6 months into my research, I was still groping at things, what is important, what is not. It is so huge. There is so much information out there right now. There are so many obstacles. There's so many questions. So I can assist you in giving you a framework of this is everything that needs to be covered. This is currently what is happening, very briefly, and how this relates to African social development, which is quite different and quite unique compared to the rest of the world. So that's what I'm offering to do for you. I've drawn up a basic research synopsis presentation for you, which is, again, basically an outline on important issues to be tackled. It will not, of course, interfere with your general research in the possibilities of cannabis legalization on all industries, but I can give you highlighted points, and then, of course, if there is any questions that you might have, any things that you don't agree with that you might have come up with in your research, I'll be happy to, if I can, assist you in creating a functional perspective. Gentlemen, what is, I think, most important to understand in this whole process is that me personally, I'm not significant in this. You are. You right now whether you're aware of it or not, are holding right now in your hands the greatest responsibility possibly for Swaziland ever. Right now you are at a pinnacle, at a junction of a global economical transformation, and what Swaziland does right now and the moves and the decisions that you make can and will permeate through all other African countries. You can set the stage for functional cannabis development. The fact that cannabis is going to be legalized eventually, this is indisputable. There's no question about that. The whole world is legalizing and Africa is going to follow suit. The real question is, how quickly can we get it together? How quickly can we make intelligent decisions and act now? Because right now, South Africa is already just legalized recreational cannabis and medical cannabis. They are already far ahead. They are going to lay the platform, and they are going to get the clients, and they're going to start this whole industry development. And Swaziland, maybe a year later, is going to be thinking, well, guys, let's sit and talk about this. Talking is over, guys. Honestly, this is something so fundamentally important, not just to Swaziland, not just to every single African in Swaziland, but into Africa itself. This opportunity is not even about cannabis. This is about the most remarkable revolutionary change that we can make for African social development and economical empowerment from here onwards. So you have carried a huge responsibility, and how effectively you deal with this right now, and depending on the intelligent choices that you make, you are not only going to do this for Swaziland, but your influence, your material, your findings, your convictions are going to permeate through Africa. You can be the influence for all other African countries. How to approach it effectively, how to deal with obstacles effectively, and how to integrate an integrous and functional system of legalization of cannabis. Before I actually get started, that was just my introduction. Before I get started, I'd like to first pay respects to Honorable Dr. Ben Dlamini, as you all obviously know him. If you don't know, he did suffer a stroke, and he is not functional to continue the process that he started. However, I do certainly speak for him, and I certainly do speak for every Swazi, whether they understand the process right now that's going on or not. And I speak for every African, and I speak for our ancestors. I speak for every single person who truly cares about African social development and who truly does want change, effective change now and forever. It is time that Africa became self-sufficient. It is time that Swaziland became self-sufficient, and this is a golden opportunity for us to do that. So, in starting with that, if Swaziland had listened to Dr. Ben Dlamini 10 years ago, gentlemen, I can guarantee you that Swaziland would be hundreds of billions of rands richer than it is right now. There would be a flourishing cannabis industry out there. And if I can give you an idea of that, you could have had 5 Simoniers by now on cannabis industry development. The costs, the money that we've lost in terms of earning, and the money that we've lost in terms of what we've paid for cannabis prohibition in Swaziland cannot even be calculated. The damages, the losses, financially, materialistically, people in jail, families destroyed. The war on cannabis has been formidable all over the world, and we have all lost. Plain and simple. If we had listened to Dr. Ben Dlamini 10 years ago, if we didn't shrug him aside and totally disregard this highly intelligent man, a man with great honor and integrity. Personally, my own opinion is that it was absolutely despicable how Dr. Ben Dlamini was dealt with, and his intentions and what he delivered to Swaziland and what he actually wanted to achieve for Swaziland. The fact that Swaziland just shunned him out of the way and put him aside is something that I hope in the future will be addressed by Swazi government, and that Dr. Ben Dlamini will get the recognition and the respect that he deserved, and hopefully now Swaziland will listen so that we don't have to lose anymore. We can make a productive and functional change. There are some small obstacles, gentlemen, and very small obstacles in comparison to what the benefits and advantages are. The disadvantages are like this compared to infinity of what the advantages and benefits of cannabis legalization is. And Dr. Ben Dlamini was trying to make this clear, but nobody would listen to him. Now, fortunately, you gentlemen and ladies have the opportunity to really deliver to Swaziland intelligent and functional solutions on every single possible obstacle that could be found now and in the future, and to make an integrous choice based on moral principles, not only for human rights in this case, but also for nature's rights and for the rights that we all have to create possibilities and to flourish, to succeed with economical reformations for Africa. If I can also, I'd like to inject that Deputy President Cyril Ramaphosa recently gave a tremendous speech at the BBC in South Africa, the Black Business Council. And his main emphasis and the focus that South African Parliament right now is focusing on is what they call radical economical transformation for Africa and for all African people. There was a lot of emphasis on this. It was the theme of his whole talk. And I really wholeheartedly can really understand and agree with where he's gotten to in all of his development. And if all of you know him, his impact in developing systems and organizations in South Africa, his leadership, his integrity is almost unquestionable. And he really does, he imparted great intelligence in basically saying it is time for Africa, for African radical economical transformation. And I can truly guarantee you that there is no greater example of this than cannabis industry development. Unmistakably, it should be put in number one, into first place, and it should be the highest priority in this country. Right now, for the next year, Swaziland should quickly make a decision, quickly get to the process, and start developing right throughout the country. But to go on to with that, I'm going to give you my framework now, if we can go through each one. If you've now approached your research in cannabis, you've obviously coming across all the scientific facts and the evidences. I'm sure you're as overwhelmed and surprised as I was. It is remarkable what is happening right now. Basically, what I first approached when I did my research is I first approached the current dysfunctional perspectives on cannabis. Right now we have the debris of American propaganda attack on cannabis 60 years ago. Okay? America very deliberately sabotaged and corrupted and eliminated the cannabis industry 60 years ago. It was very clear, deliberate intentions to do so. The reason why they did this is because giant corporations, the plastic industry, the paper industry, the fuel industry, the alcohol industry, all these massive giant industries basically sat governments down and said, gentlemen, we cannot afford to eliminate all these industries because that's what cannabis will do to us. Cannabis will destroy all of our industries. And this is what happened also, for example, in South Africa and here when cell phones came in. You know, landline companies said, whoa, no, stop this. This is going to destroy our company. And what if government took an intelligent approach and they said, no, we can't stop this development. It's free trade. That's what capitalism is. It's free trade. You have to adapt accordingly. And they did. Today, landline companies in South Africa, Telkom, are billions of times richer because they took in cell phones and they said, all right, we'll also sell cell phones. We'll also make landlines. We'll integrate it into our system. And they profited magnificently from it. This is an intelligent approach. This is an intelligent approach to a new industry stepping in the door. So basically what happened is that America, in a very clear sabotage, they actually made movies and they deliberately corrupted throughout the world. I mean, they influenced the whole world. And how they influenced the world is that they shaped people's perspectives on cannabis. Now, they took 99% of all the known benefits of cannabis and they put it aside. And they focused, which propaganda does, it focuses on the detrimental dangers. Like, for example, now, if I wanted to convince you that fire should be banned, I could clearly convince you that fire is destructive, couldn't I? It wouldn't take much. But if I start telling you all the benefits of fire, then you're not going to believe that. So if I can get that information out the door and I can just get you focused on the destructive aspects of fire, I can successfully corrupt you and you will ban fire. And this is exactly what they did with cannabis. And cannabis, of course, is not even a fraction of the danger of fire is, right? So the greatest challenge you face, definitely, is tackling that propaganda and the current perspectives on cannabis. We've come up with basically four. that every single Swazi has these concerns. One is it makes you mad. Now, if you haven't yet, you certainly will. There is absolutely no scientific evidence for the convictions that cannabis makes you mad. If we abuse any part of nature, it has detrimental effects on us. If we abuse fire, if we abuse water, if we abuse fruit, if we abuse coffee, alcohol, if we abuse each other, all of these things have detrimental impact on us. So, of course, the key is abuse. Abuse of anything is not good for you. We don't want to encourage everybody to start going out now, okay, it's legal, and go get stoned and have 10 joints a day. That's not what we're encouraging. And also, just on that point, when we legalize medical cannabis, gentlemen, there's no separating recreational cannabis from that. People are going to use cannabis for recreational use. They have done, they've never stopped, and they will continue to do so. There's no way of stopping it and controlling that, and that's been proven. But anyway, so the aspect of growing mad when you smoke cannabis is not founded. Okay, it is totally unfounded. If somebody heavily abuses cannabis, it can have disastrous effects, like any part of nature. So when we say that people grow mad by taking cannabis, this is not a truthful fact at all. In fact, if you haven't come across it yet, scientifically, there is first of all no way to actually prove madness. Period. Psychiatrists still today cannot scientifically prove madness. There can be several in a group that will agree on certain acts of that individual, and they'll determine more or less, okay, this person has schizophrenia. There actually is no real solid scientific evidence for madness. But when it comes to the fact that we can understand that if somebody gets drunk and drinks all day long, we can see a certain madness coming in them. We can see that madness. And that's the madness that we're talking about. If somebody becomes a severe alcoholic, they do go mad. This is true. But billions of other people drink quite moderately throughout their lives. Many other people will have a glass of wine after dinner. Many people choose not to drink at all. You know, I don't drink at all. It's a no-go. It's poison, and it's clear it's poison for me, and it has no advantages to me. So I can make distinctive and intelligent choices. What is most important is that we reshape our perspectives on all these factors. So on the issue of madness, this is highly questionable. Okay, right now and throughout thousands of years, cannabis has been used medicinally for many, many ailments. It is right now stepped up as the #1 treatment and cure for cancer, for epilepsy. It has more than 700 medical treatments now scientifically proven. And the aspect of the madness is that clearly we do need to prevent abuse. We need to initiate programs, harm prevention programs. We need to deal with what actually causes abuse, and then carry on from there. So the madness element is something which is the biggest concern, needs to be addressed intelligently and medically. Okay, so madness from cannabis is from something from extreme abuse. There is the possibility that the person will become dysfunctional. This is unquestionable. However, debilitating a multi-billion-dollar industry development because some people will abuse is in itself abuse, really. It's irresponsible. We cannot debilitate this transformation of our economy because some people are going to be reckless, because some people are going to abuse. The greatest aspect, what happens when we talk about abuse with cannabis, is that we need to recognize somebody abuses something, why? We can't blame cannabis. We can't blame alcohol. We have to be responsible in looking at the individual. Why does this person abuse anything? And that, if we can address that issue,
Sorry, continue. Sorry, that's our next speaker.
Okay. So the first issue on the dysfunctional perspective right now is that it makes you mad, and we should absolutely not legalize this. The second thing is that if we do legalize, the prices are going to plummet, and we're all going to lose. This is also totally erroneous. The fact this is a hundreds of billions of dollars worth global industry. Right now we have an underground industry which we can sort of roughly estimated about 3 billion rand per year. If we legalized, we would have hundreds of billions of dollars. So the fact that we could lose value is totally incorrect. We would also establish a regulatory system like we did with alcohol. A beer costs this, a license costs this, a permit costs this. We can establish or integrate a very functional regulatory system. We can establish a full regulation system where we can determine the quantity that people can have as personal use, the quantity they can have in terms of what size their industry is, how much plants they can grow, how they can use it, when they can or cannot use it, and of course, and people underage unless by doctor's prescription. There's many ways, very simple, intelligent ways that we can approach it in terms of setting a regulatory system that will control the market, and that will also give an equilibrium to the market where everybody can have access to it under responsible clauses. So that was the second one, is the drop of the value. This is absolutely not true. Then thirdly is that cannabis causes crime. Now this is, again, when I'm saying these 4 points were the clear attack. The madness theme was the madness aspect was the theme of the American propaganda machine. It makes you mad. And in fact, how they created this was that they said blacks and Spaniards in America, that's where the crime comes from, right? So to target that, and this is the most dumb thing that we do in society. We say, these are the criminals. What creates the criminal element? What is the real cause of crime? Poverty.
Yeah, that's number one.
Deprivation, destitution. What causes abuse? Poverty, destitution, deprivation. This is the real cause. And we need to address that. We need to become intelligent and go, listen, dacha is not the cause of these problems, because these problems are here without dacha. We need to address these problems. The theme of the American propaganda machine, which we are all victims of, which has cost us all dearly over the last 60 years, is the theme of madness and targeting Afro-Americans and Spaniards. Today, more than 40% of prisoners in America are black or Spaniard. Number one, because that's where the crime comes from, the poor, impoverished areas. Of course it does. Yes, it does. But more than that, they used this theme madness, where, I don't know if you've come across it yet, but there was a movie made, Reefer Madness. And they emphasized the fact that the blacks want to make us mad, and they're giving us this cannabis in order to make us mad and rape our women and bring chaos in to override our system and to take control. This was clearly their message that they sent out to the world, where they actually determined that blacks had a criminal intention to overpower and to exploit white power through marijuana. Can you believe it? And we all fall for it. And today, governments all over the world stand there defending the prohibition of cannabis based on absolute lies, absolute rubbish. And we all bought it. We're all victims of it. We are all victims of cannabis prohibition, not just the poor people, not just the poor gogos right now that are sitting in jail. We are all victims of cannabis prohibition. We need to see that. We need to see that, and we need to deal with it appropriately. Really, that's what basically is. So when I'm talking about the dysfunctional perspectives, so madness, that it causes crime, and that the value will drop. And so these were the main points, what has created completely dysfunctional perspectives. And because of that, we've totally suppressed all information on cannabis. We have done no research, we've done no further study, we've examined nothing real about it. We've actually just shut our eyes and said, okay, no, it makes you mad, it's going to lose its value, and it causes crime, so we're not even going to consider it. And now, today, thank heaven, you have the opportunity to change that. To take the blinkers off and go, guys, we actually need to look at this intelligently. Decisions were made 60 years ago, or 40 years ago for Swaziland, I'm not sure what it is, that were dysfunctional, that have not served us at all. It has not stopped any person from stopping smoking cannabis. It has not stopped the market from growing. Today, proudly, you should know, the Swazi Gold underground industry is possibly worth about 3 billion underground. It has got the most proficient and successful logistics system in the world. You can get any amount to anywhere in the world, any quality at any price. This is why Swaziland is so world famous. We've done the marketing. Swaziland is so famous in the world right now that if Swaziland had to legalize all three industries.
So when you say Swaziland, you mean the
dacha.
Yeah, okay. Tax free.
Tax free, exactly. And this is something also very important that the Prime Minister or the President of Uruguay, he has taken the most intelligent and sensible approach. This man is a true humanitarian. He doesn't even live in the parliament. He lives in his little house on the farm. He's the most wonderful, natural man. And he's taken the most intelligent approach, and he in fact has influenced the world from what he took. And he basically said, you know, we have to accept the fact that drugs are not going away. Cannabis is not going away. We have to respond more intelligently to these things.
Okay.
Right now we have an underground industry, drug industry, like for example the war with Mexico and America.
That's Uruguay president.
Yeah, Uruguay president. And he basically said, you know, this is why they were the first country to fully legalize, Uruguay. And basically his approach was, you know, the one hand we can deal more responsibly with what we might consider the evils of drugs and plants. Okay, we need to handle it more intelligently. And an intelligent approach is to determine that it is nature and we need to learn to use it responsibly, and we can use and gain the advantages from using it. Not to lock it out, not to criminalize it. The problem is not with plants, the problem is with people. People are criminals, not plants. And so if we can become responsible and make decisions that are not criminal, it could be to all of our advantage. The other thing that he brought up, which was astoundingly intelligent and surprising that no one's ever done that before, is he basically looked at me and said, you know what, gentlemen, we have an underground market here, a drug market, that are making billions. It is possibly the biggest industry in the world, underground. Now, what are we making from it?
No.
Are they paying tax? They're making all this money. We are costing us money to try to stop them, and they're making billions. So how can we deal with them effectively? Do we go kill them all? No. The intelligent thing is, let's take over the market. Let's do it legitimately. Let's do it intelligently. People want to smoke grass. People need medication. We can grow industries from it. It's to our advantage. So, let's legalize it. Let's tax them all. And that will absolutely eliminate the underground industry. The underground industry will turn into the above ground industry. And they'll become our partners. And they will help us to integrate our system. And everybody's happy. Now they're going to still make much more than they ever made before. They're not going to go to jail. They're going to be paying you a lot of taxes, and you're going to make hundreds of billions of dollars. Isn't that clever? How clever. And nobody ever thought of it before. It's a perfectly intelligent response. And so that's what he did.
Sorry, Mr. We have a small challenge of time. I'm not sure if we could try to...
Okay, let me wrap it up. Okay, so basically...
Get comments.
Okay, basically that's a dysfunctional perspective. The war on the people in cannabis is that we must acknowledge, and hopefully in your research is that you can see and acknowledge the destructiveness of cannabis prohibition. It has done nobody any good. Nobody has benefited, everybody is lost, and the damage is infinite and uncalculable. We do need to make a responsible decision against cannabis prohibition because it is billions times more destructive than cannabis ever could be. That's a logical equation right there. Cannabis prohibition costs us billions to enforce, and it causes infinite damage and losses to people's lives and to material values and to resources. And an intelligent choice is that cannabis prohibition is 1,000 times more destructive to humanity than cannabis ever possibly could be. That's a perspective in itself. A new perspective and a new solution. Right now we can, once you've gone through all your research and you can see the truth and facts, is that we can make and create new perspectives for all Swazis, for all Africans, and for ourselves, and we can create new solutions. We are intelligent enough to do this. Let's look at things intelligently. Let's stop denying the truth and facts. Let's stop suppressing information. Let's stop ignoring intelligent people when they come forward and they try to assist us to say, listen, you guys, take a new direction on this. Look at the truth and facts. Make an intelligent decision. And most importantly, guard against corruption. Guard against corruption. And I'm going to emphasize that, go on that just now as a very important point. Basically, if I can give you a quick outline on the cannabis industry, the industrial cannabis and the recreational cannabis, we're looking at 3 multi-billion-dollar industries. The medical cannabis industry, more than 700 cures, treatments. It's going to replace possibly 40% of the pharmaceutical industry. Do you know how much that is worth? Just the cure of cancer is worth something like $50 trillion globally. Just the cure for cancer. Cannabis has just stepped into the #1 place. Do you know what the economical value of that is? So medically, we can see the value. Industrially, more than 50,000 industrial uses. More than 50,000 industrial uses. It's going to most certainly replace the entire plastic industry, the entire paper industry, textiles, clothing, fuel industry. What is that worth? It's going to be the new solution for fuel. All right? Because now we can grow fuel instead of sucking it up the ground, which will end. We all know globally, all economists know that we are going to reach the limit of our supply with oil. What are we going to do? We need to find a solution. And this has been a major push towards hemp. Industrial cannabis hemp is going to replace the fuel industry. We can build houses, clothes, textile, shoes, plastics. We can create so many products from hemp. Hemp, industrial hemp is not one industry. It is at least $50 billion industries right there. See the economic value. Now also, very importantly, recreational cannabis. Recreational cannabis is now stepping up in the #1 place as a recreational stimulant. Alcohol is going out the door, cannabis is coming in. And this is a great revolution for us. If we can replace the alcohol industry with the cannabis industry, we'll all be much better off. Cannabis has never killed anybody in the world. Cannabis is a pacifier. It makes you happy, it makes you sweet, it makes you calm, it's not alcohol, it makes you aggressive, it makes you mad, it makes you berserk. We all know clearly the effects. We've all seen people that are stoned and we've seen people that are chaotically drunk. We can clearly see the difference. What do we choose? If we have to choose one of them, which would we choose? It's a very logical, intelligent choice. Alcohol, the destructiveness of alcohol on families, on the economy. Do you know how much the alcohol industry is worth? If cannabis replaces just like 10% of it, we are billions of dollars richer. It is going to. Right now in the world, people are now choosing cannabis as a recreational stimulant over alcohol. It's cheaper, far cheaper. A few puffs, done, and you're done, and you're having a great party. The truth and fact is that, and this is also sets the whole foundation for legalization, before any debate or argument starts, we have to acknowledge, as Christians, as spiritual people who respect the law and who respect our own integrity, cannabis prohibition is a violation against human rights. Plain and simple. Several courts in the world now have come to that conclusion. South Africa, just a month ago, the courts came to that conclusion. It is clearly a human rights violation. And on that premise alone, legalization should be implemented. No questions about it. We have a right to consume, to cultivate, and to sell a natural plant that God gave us for our benefit and for our advantage. Nature has rights. Nature has rights to thrive. Who are we to stop nature or to debilitate the growth and the vibrance of nature? Nature is an extension of our bodies, and as Africans, nobody should be able to understand this more than us. Nature is an extension of our bodies. It's our food, it's our clothing. We grow nature, nature grows us. It's an interconnected system. How can we go to war with that? Is there nothing intelligent in that?
This is very thrilling, but that guy, because the time constraint issue.
Okay.
We have another speaker outside.
Okay. How much time do I have left?
5.
5 minutes. Jeez, guys, you're pushing me.
You can have another helping, you can arrange another.
Okay. Well, let me just give you a brief because we need to go through this.
Thoroughly volunteered to continue working with us.
Sorry?
But thoroughly volunteered to continue working with us.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
You
Absolutely.
can come back.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay, let me just quickly touch on these points, and then what we can do, if you'd like to, we can have an extended meeting,
Yes.
because you can also go through what I've done now, and you can also tackle me on that. But just if there's anything, there was one important thing that I did want to get out. The greatest danger, which is something, the greatest danger that you should all be aware of. Okay. The monster that eliminated the cannabis industry in the first place is not dead. It's very much alive. Giant corporations do not want the legalization of cannabis. And you are all now in the front line. Gentlemen, do not underestimate the force that you are up against right now. Every single one of those industries is going to come and speak to the Prime Minister, always going to come and speak to you, and he's going to say, listen here, here's $1 million, go have a holiday, don't legalize cannabis. All right? You've got a lot of industries around you right now who do not want legalization of cannabis. It is their absolute enemy. The paper industry alone, the plastic industry alone, these industries, the pharmaceutical industry, is not going to tolerate legalization of cannabis. They're going to do whatever they can to stop it. They're going to pay whatever they can. They will do whatever they need to do in order to stop it. I really want to place a lot of emphasis on this. Your real challenge and the real dangers of cannabis is not cannabis. It's giants, corporations, who have a clear intention to stop the growth of cannabis industry.
Yeah.
Believe you me. And if you haven't come across anything yet, you certainly will. The more this moves closer towards legalization, the more the pressure is going to come on. Right now, I can assure you, all these industries know what's going on in Swaziland, and they're going, guys, let's get that committee in here, man. Let's get a real chat to them, because this cannot happen. The real obstacle that you face is giant corporations who do not want this to happen. But on that, you see, the greater possibility is that even giant corporations know that they are a snake biting their own tail. We have to find a functional process. We can't afford to make billions and destroy our people and our planet. We have to find a solution, and they are. And cannabis is that solution.
Unfortunately, our chairman cannot be bought.
Well, I'm really glad about that, because if there's anything I needed to say to you today,
No,
it is
Mr. Wood,
this.
I think we have a challenge. I'm sorry that we have to stop you right in the middle of nowhere, but I'm sure you are still going to remember where you ended, and we're going to invite you once again so that we can do really we are very excited. In fact, I would request that we keep our comments for the second half in the third year. We'll definitely slot you in for at your convenience this time.
Anytime, just give me a call, book it, I'll make myself free
We're
available.
here before 10.
And in addition, you must try to go and look at maybe improving the what called recommendations, just to beat them up a little bit more.
Beat them up in terms of
The framework you promised us,
Yes.
you can also go as far as the framework of the
That's
community.
it. Yes.
the for your regulatory system.
I thought you said you can volunteer the framework.
Yeah.
Yes.
Did you get the cannabis framework? I mean, the Canadian framework.
No.
You promised to volunteer. He's saying perhaps as part of that you can also improve on your recommendations
Yes.
so that it is more structured.
In terms of a regulatory system.
Yes.
Yes.
Whatever
Okay.
whatever you
I will.
want to, yeah.
All right. Right now,
Whatever
South
I think
Africa.
makes sense, yeah.
Yeah. Right now, the regulatory system in South Africa has, the MCC has just are busy rectifying it right now. They're shaping it for Africa. But what I can do is that if you can study the Canadian system, regulatory system, it is the most advanced in the world. It is definitely what you should use as your framework, and then inject African principles into that.
Okay.
That's what I would suggest. There is no better module than the current. They've just finished it.
But is
They've
it
just had a
called- what
task
is it
like
called?
you. Did you all get it?
I did Canadian regulatory system.
Yeah, you got it, right? You got a PDF of it.
On cannabis.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is the most advanced system in the world. You should definitely study that, and then add what you feel is more conducive to African environment. That's what I would strongly suggest. It's a very extensive project. This is something else I wanted to advise you guys, is cut through the red tape. Use what people have got. The Canadian system is the most advanced. It took them a lot of time and a lot of money to put it together. Use it. Shape it according to you and use that. Because that is the most advanced intelligence on cannabis regulatory systems. Yeah.
Okay, thanks very much.
And I'm happy to assist you in any which way that I can. I'll make myself freely available to you. And I really wish you the very best of luck.
Thank you very much. This is only the starting point. So
Very
we'll
good.
continue to work together until we put up a
Excellent.
good report.
Very good. I'll also give a few things here now to the lady.
Thank you very much.
Is this your email on this?
That is, yeah, that's my number and my email.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Wood.
Gentlemen, you're very welcome.
The last person right on the extreme is
Sorry.
from the party, the King's Party.
The King's Party.
MP Sonsa from State.
I'm fine, Mr. Wood.
He was
Nice to
hosting.
meet you.
He was
We met
hosting
before, I
the-
think.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
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 We
We discussed it. That's what